Hello everyone, this is the Algerian General and welcome into a new episode of the Modding Bootcamp. Today we're going to continue from where we last left off, where we actually took a look at units. Today we'll take a look at equipment modding. Now there is of course a dedicated wiki page in the HOI IV Wiki just for modding equipment. So we're just going to go over it and take a look at some examples. So first of all, you need to understand the way equipment works. There's two clauses in the code. So if you go to common, units, and equipment, let's go for instance to light tanks. Now, the unit, as we said in the last video, and I highly advise you watch it if you haven't, units will use archetype. This here is an archetype. How do you know? Well, there's the is archetype equals yes. Every piece of equipment needs an archetype. An archetype is some sort of way of grouping equipment. And this is the only way to tell a certain unit to use a certain type of equipment. So, since light armor is an archetype, then this is exactly what you put in the unit's code. So if we now go back to units, light armor, you will see that here needs light armor equipment. This is an archetype, and as far as I know, you cannot put actual equipment here. You just need to, or you're only able to put equipment. That is, of course, if you have multiple of that same category. But if I am not mistaken, if we take a look at infantry, for instance, we take a look at need, maybe not infantry, maybe, what's their name? Oh yes, motorcycle dudes, or bicycle dudes, sorry. So, where are they? Here, maybe? Yeah, bicycle dudes. So you could see they use support equipment and infantry equipment. Thing is, there's only one support equipment. There's only one equipment, so an archetype is unnecessary. As you could see, once I get into equipment and then support equipment, you will see, oh, I was wrong. Apparently I was wrong. You do need an archetype at all cases. Yeah. Here's the equipment, and here's the archetype. As simple as it gets. Now back to the story. I'm going to use this one here as a base for what we do and what we don't. So this is the unit. It uses light armor equipment. This is the archetype. You always need to put the archetype here. This is why you need archetype in your equipment. So here you could see something from Darkest Hour. This is not really light tanks, but rather armored cavalry, which are indeed light tanks, but just different names. Doesn't matter. This is the archetype. How do you know? There's the is archetype equals yes. Is buildable equals no. You cannot really build the archetype. The archetype just groups the equipment, but it's not an equipment itself. Here, of course, you could see the equipment. And then, of course, you have these various code bits, which we will get into later on. But the way it works is that whatever is in the archetype as data, as values, is used unless it is overwritten by the equipment. For instance, if you take a look at the equipment, the 1943 light tank, it has a speed of 20. If you go here, speed of 10. So, if I, for instance, comment out this part or remove it, right, it's going to use the speed of the archetype, which is this one, 10. Well, we don't want to delete it, so yeah. We're going to take a look now at these actual stats and what they do. So you have, first of all, is year, which is when, it limits the equipment from appearing before the specific year. It is indeed optional. Then you have picture. This is what you actually see in the Lend-Lease screen. is archetype equals yes specifies an entry as an archetype entry. All non-archetype entries inherit. Yep, this is exactly what we just said. The archetype has its stats, and well, the equipment pretty much inherits it and replaces what needs to be replaced. Now, active equals yes. Now, simple. It's by default set to no, but it means that if you set it to yes, it means that this equipment in specific doesn't need to be researched. You don't need a technology to unlock it. So it's already unlocked by default. Moving on, you have is convertible equals yes. This is for equipment conversion. You know, you can convert, for instance, light tank to media, to tank destroyers and so on, using your stockpile of light tanks. As simple as it gets. Type equals armor. This is the type. You know, what kind of units can use this equipment? This is mainly used, I believe, for AI. Yeah, it is indeed used for the AI to know what to produce and what not to produce. Group by. How the equipment is grouped in the production screen. Yes, group by archetype, for instance. Which means that this one here is going to be in the same area as tanks. Moving on, you have interface category, which is what category it appears in the production screen. Resources used to build this equipment. Here, we're gonna get into some interesting stats. I've already grouped them into technical stats, combat stats, and armor stats. But also you have the, yeah, pretty much everything is here. Technical stats, this is what, at least, this is my layout, okay? You can have whatever layout you want. So you have the maximum speed, how fast this unit is, reliability, how easy it is to fix and so on. The lower the reliability, the more often these things actually break. Build cost IC, how much IC does it use to build? These are basically points. I'm not so sure how much IC each factory gives. Could always take a look. Eight. So each factory is going to give you 8 IC per day. This is at 100% efficiency. So, in other words, if the light tank, for instance, needs 11, so you're basically going to divide 11 by 8. Well, you guys can do the maths. I guess I'm going to make a video on that later on. Combat stats. This is what I use at least for combat stats. You have soft attack, which is self-explanatory, hard attack, air attack, this thing is able to shoot planes or not, defense. I say we just take a look here, that's where we can just, yeah. Armor, modifiers. You could give equipment actual modifiers like organization and so on. Weight. Here you will be able to find all the things you could add here in these stats, and you know, you could find what suits your needs. You know, I never realized that you could have combat width for equipment. Fascinating, isn't it? And these cost training. Wait, no, these are for units, not equipment. Huh. I just find it strange or here. And there you go, you have the air-specific ones, which are only for aircrafts. You know, air equipment. You can have, you know, air attack, agility, range, and so on. Default carrier composition weight, 1. Now that we have actually gone through the stats, we're going to go to how you can have a custom picture for your equipment and how you can have custom names for your equipment. We're going to start by the simple stuff, which is equipment. Now, equipment names are stored in the localization file known as equipment. Equip air, this is for aircraft, equip naval for ships, and equipment for the rest. If you take a look here, you scroll down, first you have the variant names, A, B, C, D. Of course you could have custom ones made if you want. But it's not today's subject. What we are going to talk about today is the equipment. So basically, if we take a look back at our light tank, for instance, there's one here, light tank 6, and just so you know, you don't really have to put it in this specific file. You could create a whole new file, you know, put it in the replace folder. I'm gonna make a tutorial on how localization works next, so yeah, that one will be fairly nice. Moving on, if you want to have, and I'm not gonna show you the vanilla file since that one is quite messy. I'm gonna show you the one that we have in Darkest Hour. Replace. Let's take a look at tanks, light tanks. So here you could see the way it works. So here you have the actual equipment. You could also give a name to the archetype, but the actual equipment, this is how you do it. You put it, there's a name. There's also the short name. Now the short name shows up on the tech tree itself, while the long name shows up when you click on the technology. It also shows up when you produce that certain equipment in the production lines. You will see the full name. So main battle tank 48, for instance. This is the generic name. Let's take the 1964 one, okay? Alright. Oh, and description is for descriptions. Now let's say I want to add a custom name for Germany for this specific tank. You just add the tag underscore. Alright? So Ger, for instance. You can check the list in the common / country tags, I believe. That's where you can find all the country tags you have. I already made a video on that. It's the very first video where I explain what each folder, each file does. So highly advise you check that on if you haven't. So Germany. This is how you get your name. So you can have, for instance, Panzer Kampfwagen 2000, and here you can have the short name. So Panzer Kampfwagen 2000. This is how you do it, and then you just need to save, and this is what the equipment is going to show up. As simple as it gets. Now we're going to get into something else. We're going to get into how you can set custom graphics. Now graphics are going to be split into two parts: 2D, which are the ones you see in the tech tree, and 3D, the ones you see on the battlefield. So the simple one, 2D interface. Well, I'm gonna go to vanilla, anyways. It's all as technologies, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And here, all you have to do, scroll down. Let me just show you the format, real quick. I'm gonna delete this. So it's GFX underscore your equipment name. So in this case, for instance, it's light tank 6 underscore medium, and here you just put the path for the DDS file. You could use TGA. TGA is also usable. It's maybe something that not everyone knows, but you could use TGA as well. And I find TGA, or Targa, as some of you might know it, as a very interesting format because it's much more accessible, yet it does whatever DDS file actually do. And the size is fairly small. So, what else is there to say? For instance, in Darkest Hour, I switched from using DDS to TGA for portraits. And I believe the same was done by other big mods, such as, which one was it? Kaiserreich, yeah. I've actually heard them talk about it. I guess that Kaiserreich does use TGA for their portraits. I could be wrong there. You may check if you want, you know. But that's how you set equipment icons. That's, of course, was for the generic one. If you want to have... Yeah, sorry, my nose is a bit struggling, right? But if you want to set custom sprites for a certain nation, you just add the tag before it. So it's GFX underscore, for instance, Germany. So GER underscore the equipment underscore medium. Now, onto the interesting part, how you can set custom 3D models for custom equipment. Now it's fairly simple. You just need to go into GFX and entities here. Now the way it works is fairly simple. We're going to take a look into the Battleships DLC, because this one has some custom icons for certain nations. Okay, there's two types of files in the entities folder. GFX is basically where you declare, those files, those 3D files and textures and so on. This is where you actually tell the games, yeah, that's the one, kind of like GFX files already work for the rest of the stuff. I will make, I guess, a tutorial on how interface works rather soon, maybe after localization. So you have the assets folder and you have the GFX folder. So GFX is actually where you set things up, so you give it, of course, a name. So for instance, Bismarck Battleship Mesh, the file, and the animations. Now, if I were you, I wouldn't mess with these unless I know what I'm doing. Next is the assets file. This is where you actually tell the game, oh, use this for that, And the way it works is fairly simple. Kinda, there's a lot of stuff here. I guess I'm going to make a dedicated video on how you can actually port a 3D file, how to implement that correctly, but for the time being, all you need to know is you need to go here to set things up, and this is what you set the mesh, which you see here. This is the mesh which we did set here. Now, before we move on, there's something else we need to talk about. Check this one. If we take a look at Darkest Hour, for instance, I used to, not this one, the old Darkest Hour, in entities, in units air. This is how we actually set the aircraft to use custom 3D models. So you could see it's the tag underscore the equipment underscore entirety, and this is of course where I set the mesh. The one that I told you actually set up here in the GFX file. You could give it whatever name I want. I could call it Big Baguette underscore mesh, and just you need to make sure you just put it here as well. I believe it is case sensitive, so you need to not fuck up. And yeah, that concludes today's video about equipment. So we pretty much went around the code, we went around how you set custom name for the equipment, and how you can set custom 2D sprites and 3D sprites for your equipment. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to get more content. Really appreciate the support. We've already gone past 100 subscribers, and I just want to say that I truly appreciate the support. I never thought I would reach 100 or something along those lines, But it's good. It's always, great to hear that people are interested in the content I'm making. Of course, I'm going to start diversifying the equipment I make. Not the equipment I make. Sorry, too much equipment. I'm gonna start diversifying, the kind of content I make on the channel. So playthroughs and so on. In fact, I'm gonna start making one right now. So yeah, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.